Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General, Your Excellency, Ms. Maria Fernanda Espinosa, President of the 73rd Session of the UN General Assembly, Your Excellency, Mr. Mevlut Cavusoglu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey, Your Excellency, Mr. Fernando Martin Valenzuela, State Minister of Foreign Affairs of Spain, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is my esteemed pleasure to welcome you all to the 8th Global Forum of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. It is being held for the first time here in New York City, one of the most diverse cities in the world. I would like to thank the state of Qatar, my country, for its financial and political sponsorship. At the outset, let me take this opportunity to pay tribute to the late Secretary General, Mr. Kofi Annan, an extraordinary leader who embodied the principles of the United Nations and who left an unforgettable legacy. Indeed, it was Kofi Annan who in 2005, with September 11 and other terrorist attacks around the world fresh in our minds, launched the Alliance of Civilizations. His goal was to build bridges of understanding and dialogue among peoples across diverse cultures and religions. The co-sponsor, the government of Spain and the government of Turkey, turned this vision into a reality. I would like to thank them for their political and financial support. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to express my sincere appreciation and gratitude to United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his trust and support for me and my office. The Secretary General has placed prevention and sustaining peace at the center of the UN's peace and security agenda. I'm confident that the overarching theme of this year's forum, commit to dialogue, partnerships for prevention and sustaining peace, will make an important contribution to this agenda. In the last few years, we have made significant progress in several key areas of work, namely in the context of preventing hate speech, supporting intercultural and interfaith dialogue, empowering youth, and in strengthening peace education. However, despite notable achievements, the delicate mosaic of our civilizations remains under threat. In all corners of the world, inciters of hate take pride in driving a wedge between different ethnic groups and civilizations. For them, culture is a source of division instead of a basis for dialogue and richness. These challenges require our collective resolve. The battle for ideas, for our shared values, never ends. During the course of the next 2 days, we have the opportunity to take stock of our achievements, identify challenges, and forge new and innovative partnerships in pursuit of peace, justice, and human dignity. I thank you, and I look forward to our discussion through the forum. Now I would like to give the floor to His Excellency, the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Madam President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Just a few hours' drive from here, is the city of Pittsburgh. Less than a month ago, Pittsburgh was the scene of an horrendous attack. Jewish worshippers gunned down in prayer. It was an unspeakable act, yet I was struck by the voices that emerged. The local Muslim community, for example, raised tens of thousands of dollars to help the victims. Let us know what you need, a leader said. We will be there. He said he was echoing the same message of support that his community received in times of trouble. He was also echoing the essence of the mission of the Alliance of Civilizations. The Alliance is not a feel-good initiative. It is fundamental to peace, to security, to sustainable development, and to the world we need to build. And this is why I'm pleased to welcome you to this opening session of the 8th Global Forum of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. And I thank High Representative Nasir Abdulaziz Al Nasser for his service in guiding the Alliance over the past 6 years. The role of the Alliance of Civilizations has never been more relevant to our 2030 Agenda objective of building more peaceful, just, and resilient societies. For that, we need to promote the conditions where people of different identities, faiths, and cultures can live in harmony, free of discrimination and persecution. Sadly, today, culture, faiths, and a false notion of identity are still creating serious problems and threats in different regions. Think no further than the desperate plight of the Rohingya people of Myanmar, subject to ethnic cleansing in the only place that they can call home. Or the ordeal of the Yazidi people in Iraq, overrun by ISIS, their men slaughtered and their women and girls sold into slavery. These peoples, and many more around the world, are guilty of nothing except being different from their persecutors. It is unacceptable and a source of deep shame that identity should make a person or a community a target. Yet, in today's world, people whose identities are defined by religion, culture, or ethnicity continue to be besieged by hatred. We see in the resurgence of neo-Nazis organizations and anti-Semitism. We see in the vitriol directed at refugees and migrants, some of our world's most vulnerable and needy people, and which is why it is essential that next month nations embrace the compacts on migration and refugees. We see it in the homophobia that permeates minds and laws in countries throughout the world. And we see it in the global pandemic of violence against women and girls, from so-called honor killings to the pervasive sexual harassment that so many females endure in all societies. That is why we must all work together to build societies that are truly respectful and inclusive, and where diversity is seen as a richness, not a threat. But this will not necessarily happen spontaneously. It needs the investment of commitment of political community and faith leaders. How can we achieve this goal? First, we must engage in sincere and inclusive dialogue. Religious leaders and faith-based organizations have tremendously important roles to play in promoting understanding and acting as moderating voices. Faith is too often used to divide us, usually as a result of cynical political manipulation. But faith can and should provide pathways for understanding and for people to celebrate their diversity based on their common values. I'm particularly pleased that the Alliance of Civilizations is providing a global space for religious leaders to exchange views and explore how to amplify their role. And I urge the international community to continue to draw on the wisdom and experience of religious leaders from all denominations in peace-building efforts, particularly in the context of promoting national reconciliation. Second, we need to harness the creativity and energy of young people. That is why I've launched a youth strategy to create an enabling environment for young people to engage with the United Nations and with each other to promote understanding. I welcome the efforts of the Alliance to place youth at the center of its activities. With the rise of misinformation, dangerous hoaxes, and hate speech on social media, young people need to be educated and empowered to identify and repudiate those destructive trends. And third, our effort must be anchored in respect for universal human rights. As we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights next month, let us recall that the inherent dignity and equal rights of all members of the human family provide the foundation for freedom, justice, and peace. And this includes respect for freedom of religion and expression, freedom from discrimination of any kind, and the right to participate in and preserve the cultural life of our communities. Only when our societies are based on true respect for the diversity of humankind can we provide a buttress against extremist propaganda. That is why we need the alliance of civilizations, so people of all faiths and cultures and identities can live together peacefully, safely, and free of fear. And I wish you a very productive and uplifting forum. Thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary General for his remarks, and now I would like to invite Her Excellency Mrs. Maria Fernanda Espinosa, President of the United Nations General Assembly 73rd session.
Thank you very much. Su Excelencia
Your Excellency Nasir Abdulaziz Al Nasser, representative of the United Nations for the Alliance of Civilizations, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, Minister of Foreign Relations of Turkey, Your Excellency Fernando Martín Valenzuela Marzo, Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs of Spain, distinguished delegates and guests. I would like to thank the Alliance of Civilizations for what they have been doing to promote intercultural and interreligious dialogue and tolerance, diversity, and a culture of peace. I would also like to acknowledge the excellent leadership of Spain and Turkey heading this initiative. We are meeting here today against a very difficult global backdrop.
Nos encontramos hoy.
As I said, we are meeting today against a very difficult global backdrop. There are many crises ranging from poverty and inequality to the devastating impact of climate change, forced migration, and an intensification of conflicts and intolerance and hatred and terrorism. To deal with this extremely complex situation, we need strong collective action and global agreements. Dialogue is the most powerful tool we can use to achieve this. Dialogue that respects diversity, based on tolerance and empathy, on the recognition that despite religious and cultural differences, we are all united as part of humanity. The Alliance of Civilizations, since it was founded, has encouraged dialogue and has become an important platform for bringing nations, cultures, and religions closer together. So I believe we must not only preserve this forum, we must strengthen it and make it even broader. I was pleased to see that many of the priorities I set for my presidency are consonant with the pillars of the Alliance of Civilizations, and I would like to address a few of them briefly. First of all, mobilizing collective political will and action. This global forum is an example of a real Minga, collective action by governments, the United Nations, civil society, religious bodies, the media, the private sector, to promote more peaceful societies based on the values of cooperation, solidarity, and the celebration of diversity. Representing the most representative and democratic multilateral forum that exists, the General Assembly of the United Nations, I confirm my commitment to encourage dialogue and global action to prevent violence and conflict and to reach agreements for humanity and planet Earth. Secondly, I would focus on youth. Young people are agents of change. including young people in development policies and peace-building activities, is crucial in preventing conflicts and finding lasting sustainable solutions. I have had an opportunity of working with teams where young people's different outlooks and abilities have been decisive in finding creative and innovative solutions. And one of my 7 priorities is indeed the role of young people in peace and security. I believe that in the General Assembly, humanity's parliament, we can move firmly ahead on issues involving young people, their political participation, decent jobs, gender equality, empowerment of women, human rights, and the important part they can play in achieving more peaceful societies. The third issue I would like to highlight is migration. The history of the human race has been built through migration. The phenomenon of migration has existed since time immemorial, but today it presents us with new challenges and requires global responses and agreement. Next December, we will be adopting the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Secure Migration, the first international framework for cooperation dealing with all of the dimensions of migration. This is a global compact which will enable states to cooperate, to learn from their experiences and good practices, and to tackle the underlying causes. The ultimate goal being to make sure that migration is helpful to everyone and that the decision to migrate is an option and not a requirement. I believe the Alliance of Civilizations can encourage dialogue and a deeper understanding, an unbiased understanding of migration. And lastly, Your Excellencies, as representative of 193 states with different histories, cultures, languages, development models, but that also share the common aspiration to live in peace and develop sustainably, I will be closely following your debates. I believe that we can contribute to innovative solutions. And in the words of the Italian writer and philosopher Umberto Eco, the beauty of the universe is not only unity in variety, but diversity in unity. This is what this great alliance of civilizations promotes and encourages, so that we can have a more human and peaceful world. Thank you.
I thank the President of the General Assembly for her remarks, and now it gives me the pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Mevlut Cavusoglu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. High Representative, my dear brother, Mr. Secretary General, Madam President of the General Assembly, colleagues, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to address you today for the opening of the 8th Global Forum of the United Nations Alliance of the Civilizations. First, let me convey the greetings of Mr. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Alliance co-initiator, and he sent his best wishes for a successful forum. And today I am very happy to see co-initiator, former Prime Minister of Spain, Zapatero, and his then Foreign Minister, Mauritius. This year, for the first time, the Global Forum is taking place here in New York. It is a quite timely and important event. We should demonstrate continued resolve and political will to counter the prejudice, exclusion, polarization, and hatred all around the world. This pursuit constitutes the philosophical grounds of the Alliance of the Civilizations, which is an initiative with one of the broadest supporters bases in the United Nations. I would like to thank Secretary General and Madam President of the General Assembly for their strong support to Alliance. And I would like to express our gratitude to the High Representative Al Nasser and his team for their precious efforts to strengthen the alliance during his tenure. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the Alliance of the Civilization is now 14 years old. Over these years, its group of friends has expanded vastly, and its network and outreach became wider and more diversified through activities in its 4 pillars, namely education, youth, migration, and media. The Alliance is reaching out every day to real people and making a difference on the ground. Given the current global circumstances, the Alliance continues to be relevant and necessary more than ever. This is why it has to be stronger, more visible, active, effective, and also politically relevant for the promotion of dialogue and understanding in global scale. As one of its co-sponsors, Turkey feels a special responsibility. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dialogue, partnership, and prevention are crucial for sustaining peace. In this vein, the theme of the 8th Global Forum, Commit to Dialogue, Partnership for Prevention and Sustaining Peace, is quite relevant. And today's conflicts are more complex. Therefore, our prevention and resolution efforts should also be as such. Lasting peace requires comprehensive, inclusive, and coordinated approaches. Different actors need to complement each other. Regional, sub-regional, and local organizations, as well as civil society, are indispensable in these efforts. Diversity is a source of enrichment and an engine for social progress in all of our countries. In this regard, our common front is needed to address intolerant public discourse, including by political leaders, the media, and internet in today's world. And we regret to observe global and regional trends, such as in Europe, where populism and right-wing extremism have reached unseen proportions. Xenophobia, racism, discrimination, anti-Islam sentiments, and hatred against Muslims are rising in parallel to migration and mass refugee flows. Speaking from a national perspective, Turkey is proud for having welcomed those fleeing from oppression and injustice throughout the history, not only today. And people who found their new home in our lands have enriched our society. Today, in line with its enterprising and humanitarian foreign policy, Turkey is the world's largest refugee hosting country. Is it easy? No, it is not easy at all, but it is the right thing to do. Ladies and gentlemen, in concluding my remarks, I want to make a call to all of you. Please, give strong messages of cooperation and commitment to the very reasons for which you are a part and supporter of the Alliance. Let's unite on the need and dedication to tackle extremism and polarization. Turkey, as believing in the merit of effective multilateralism and as one of the co-sponsors of this very important initiative of the United Nations, is willing and ready to continue its firm support for our common efforts. Thank you very much.
I thank the Foreign Minister of Turkey for his remarks, and now I would like to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Fernando Martin Valenzuela Marzo, State Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Spain.
Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary General, Madam President of the General Assembly, gentlemen, ladies, dear friends, participants in this 8th Global Forum of the Alliance of Civilizations. It is an honor for Spain to participate in this event, together with Turkey as countries which are co-sponsors of this initiative. It has been 10 years since the first forum, which brought together hundreds of delegates in Madrid in 2008. At that time, the president of the Spanish government, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, present here, wondered, and I quote, "Why is the alliance of civilizations necessary?" And he offered a simple answer which is valid today. In order to bridge a gap and to tackle a real problem, the management of diversity in a globalized world. The alliance was born at a critical time, contributing innovative ideas. The intercultural contact had never been an anomaly in the history of mankind, but communication had not always been channeled through dialogue, but rather through confrontation. In Europe, we have a very clear memory of that. Our continent shed blood, and we understood that prosperity and peace must go hand in hand and can only last and be sustainable over time when they are based on respect for rules, common and shared solutions, integration, and an openness to a plurality of ideas. This multilateralism, which led to the global order, is also the raison d'etre of today's Spain, based on our constitution. In a few days, it will be its 40th anniversary. The values of today's world require the participation of civil society, especially today when multilateralism is subjected to greater pressures. The Alliance of Civilizations came at the best possible time because it came to satisfy a growing need, the need to channel a changing world, because our world inevitably will be more diverse, more complex, and more plural in the future. Fortunately, all of these deep changes are not new to us, and the United Nations represented this global multilateralism, and it is now proud to have a fully developing alliance of civilizations. The alliance is a tool, a powerful tool based on ideas and based on a broad consensus and mainstreamed in the system of the organization. Having overcome the first decade of shared experiences, the Alliance is now facing a new stage. In 2018, we are facing new and old challenges, but above all, modern societies are facing a turning point, because today, more than ever before, we cannot allow the manipulation of diversity turn into diversity as a source of hate. And for all of that, the alliance is essential today. In all of these years, it has traveled a long path, and it is a basic political tool in the United Nations system. The Secretary General has referred to the difference between a world at peace and a world in pieces. We need to build bridges, and we must make international stability a strong principle. These are not only tasks for the highest political levels. On the contrary, they require the commitment of all. They call for the very active participation of the social fabric, facing different cultural realities. We must consider plurality as a strength in itself, the maximum expression of the human spirit. An open international society can only be strengthened on the basis of social cohesion. The alliance is a unique example of this. And I must recall here that soft power, which the alliance represents, is not the same thing as weak power. The alliance contemplates global values, and ultimately it can put an end to the dynamics of conflicts before they become a reality. The Alliance of Civilizations must be a catalyst of all of this, and it must support the preventive action of the United Nations, which is one of the main values of this organization. Through its practical contribution to an overarching approach, the Alliance will also facilitate the process of reform and strengthening, which is underway at this headquarters, and it will make it possible to strengthen the impact on the ground of regional and national political strategies in the 21st century. The alliance will continue to contribute valuable ideas in all of its priority fields: education, youth, migration, media. In particular, it will never forget inclusive societies and strengthening them. For this reason, the considerable progress made in the social dimensions of women, their active participation in peacemaking, all of these are requirements leading to a more stable world. In fact, peace processes will be fully successful if they include women. Otherwise, they will inevitably fail. Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, we wish to thank in particular your presence at this opening ceremony, and we thank you for your constant support for this initiative. I also wish to thank the High Representative, Mr. Nasser al-Nasser, for his years of work and tireless efforts on behalf of the Alliance. We are proud to be here, and we are prepared to move forward. No doubt all of the contributions made during these 2 days of the Global Forum will continue to enrich the Alliance of Civilizations and to enhance and include its scope toward a more promising future for all. Thank you.
I thank the State Secretary for Foreign Affairs of Spain for his remarks. Now it gives me great pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Sultan bin Saad Al Muraikhi, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar, as the keynote speaker for the sponsor of the 8th UNAOC Global Forum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
May God's blessings be upon you. Distinguished High Representative, President of the General Assembly, Secretary General, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure at the outset to express our appreciation to Mr. Nasser Abdulaziz Al Nasser, the High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, and his team for the excellent preparation of this global forum, and we reaffirm our support of the objectives of the forum and welcome the results over the past 9 years. We deeply appreciate the role of the group of friends of the Alliance. They have an important role to play in light of the rising conflict and tension in many parts of the world. We are duty-bound to redouble our efforts towards reconciliation, tolerance, and to fight extremism and terrorism. A proper environment for stability and peace must be created in the international community. The Alliance of Civilization, since its inception, has played an important role to confront the threats of the negative thoughts prevailing in society, to promote peace and security in the world. The Alliance generated many efforts within the UN system to promote tolerance, understanding, and cooperation between faiths, civilizations, and societies. In this regard, let me express our satisfaction at the varied activities undertaken by the Alliance in cooperation with the United Nations and its membership, as presented in the report of the High Representative related to the strategy over the past 2 years. No doubt that those efforts are of utmost importance because they are necessary. He further stated that necessary resources must be made available to confront the threats that he referred to in his report. The coalition must, the alliance must be enabled to continue its role. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of Qatar looks to the alliance as personifying the policies of the state of Qatar, a respect of human rights, mutual respect between civilizations, faiths, and societies, the resolution of conflicts by peaceful means, and the rule of law nationally and internationally. More than 2 million people live in the state of Qatar, of many backgrounds, faiths, and civilizations, and they are a source of richness in our society. The state of Qatar has always supported the alliance and its projects since its inception. Doha also hosted the 4th Global Forum of the Alliance, proceeding from our belief in the need for international peace, for the promotion of human rights. The state of Qatar has set up institutions to spread the culture of peace, to promote freedom of faith, to combat extremism and terrorism, including the International Doha Center for Dialogue Among Civilizations and the Center for the dialogue between religions. We have also led UN efforts to set up the international coalition to report on the results obtained within the Sustainable Development Goal. We believe that education is a main pillar for human civilization to combat extremism and terrorism, and we have therefore made many initiatives to support education in conflict areas. A number of projects and initiatives undertaken under the leadership of Princess Moza Nasser, and many results, including education for all in cooperation with UNICEF and 80 international partners. That initiative has provided education to 10 million children from more than 50 countries around the world. His Royal Highness the Emir of Qatar in September of this year declared that Qatar would provide high-quality education to 1 million girls living in conflict areas by 2022 in cooperation with Canada. We look forward to hosting the World Cup 2020 as a step and a bridge between civilizations and peoples. We express the hope that this global forum will come up with recommendations and solutions towards its noble objectives. We look forward to effective partnerships between governments, civil society, and all peace-loving peoples. In conclusion, the state of Qatar recommits itself to supporting the Alliance of Civilization in the United Nations towards more bridges between all of us. May God's blessings be upon you. Thank you.
I thank the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar for his remarks, and I would like to thank all of you for attending the opening ceremony. Before we move to the plenary session 1, I would like to thank His Excellency, the Secretary General, the President of the UN General Assembly, the Foreign Minister of Turkey, State Minister of Spain, and the State Minister of Foreign Affairs of State of Qatar. Thank you very much.
you. Yeah, but I don't know where is the Menendez. Menendez, my speaker.